You know that feeling when you've been doing everything right for 2 years. I mean, you've basically become a monk of personal finance. You skip the Coachella trips that your friends are still posting about. You've meal prepped until you can identify the exact brand of frozen broccoli by smell alone, and you've been religiously funneling every spare cent into your Vanguard or Fidelity account. You're doing the adult thing. You're being responsible. You're the hero of your own boring financial movie. And then, on a random Tuesday, while you're sitting in your cubicle eating a lukewarm turkey sandwich, you log in to check your progress. You're expecting a pat on the back from the universe. You're expecting the numbers to look back at you and say, "Good job, soldier, you're almost there." You check your returns for the last month. 47 cents. Your portfolio didn't just underperform, it insulted you. You've sacrificed your social life, your hobbies, your Friday night steaks, and your mental health, and the global stock market, the engine of human progress, rewards you with the price of a single, slightly bruised grape. This is the moment where the scarcity brain takes over. You start doing that dangerous mental math. You think, if I had just spent that $500 last month on those new noise-canceling headphones, I would be happy right now. Instead, I gave it to Wall Street, and they gave me 47 cents. This is why 90% of people quit. They feel like they're running a marathon on a treadmill that isn't even plugged in. I'm Glolome, your favorite skeptical orange cat. Today, we're talking about the $100,000 wall. Most financial gurus show you those beautiful, smooth compounding curves that look like a professional hockey stick. They are lying to you. In the real world, the first 7 to 10 years of investing don't feel like a curve. They feel like a flat line on a hospital monitor when the patient is already dead. We're going to dive into the brutal physics of the first $100,000. We're going to talk about why your wealth is invisible right now, why your brain is actively trying to sabotage your future. And I'm going to give you a 3-year survival system to get you to the tipping point where your money finally decides to stop being a lazy teenager and starts working harder than you do. Because the truth is, until you hit that wall, you aren't investing, you're just glorified saving. And the difference between the two is what separates the people who retire at 50 from the people who die at their desks. Why is the first $100,000 so soul-crushingly difficult? It's not just because the math is slow, it's because your biology is working against you. Humans are wired for a world of immediate feedback. If our ancestors picked a berry, they ate it. If they killed a mammoth, they had a feast. They didn't diversify their mammoth portfolio into low-cost index funds for 30 years. When you're in the early stages of building wealth, let's say you have $15,000 saved. Your contributions do 100% of the heavy lifting. If the market goes up 10% in a year, which is a fantastic year, you made $1,500. After inflation and taxes, that's basically a set of tires and a nice dinner. It doesn't change the zip code you live in. It doesn't change the car you drive. It doesn't change the fact that you still have to set an alarm for 6:30 a.m. This creates what I call identity fatigue. You see, building wealth requires you to adopt the identity of a wealthy person while living the lifestyle of someone much poorer. This is a massive cognitive load. Every time you drive past a Tesla dealership in your 2014 Honda Civic, your brain sends a signal. You're failing. Look at that guy. He's your age and he's winning. Why are you suffering for a 47-cent return? Social media has turned this fatigue into a 24/7 psychological war. In 2026, you aren't just comparing yourself to your neighbors. You're comparing your behind the scenes boring life to the highlight reels of 8 billion people. You see a 22-year-old on TikTok making $50,000 a month from a side hustle that involves selling AI generated coloring books. And suddenly, your slow, steady index fund strategy looks like a suicide mission. This is the financial vacuum. It's the period between your first dollar and your 100,000th dollar, where the effort is high and the visibility is low. It's like trying to start a fire in a monsoon using only damp matches and your own frustration. Your brain tells you that you're stuck, but the reality is you're loading. Think about a massive cargo ship when the captain wants to move that ship from a standstill. The engines have to burn an astronomical amount of fuel just to move the vessel 1 inch. For the first few miles, it looks like nothing is happening. But that energy isn't wasted. It's overcoming inertia. Your first $100,000 is you overcoming the inertia of poverty. If you stop now, you've burned all that fuel just to stay in the harbor. You have to stay in the seat until the physics starts to work for you. Since we know your brain is a traitor, we cannot rely on motivation or willpower. Motivation is for people who want to lose 5 pounds before a wedding. For the $100,000 wall, we need a survival protocol. We need to build an environment that treats your savings like a tax that cannot be negotiated. Step 1. The invisible dashboard strategy. Stop checking your balance every day. Seriously, delete the app from your home screen. When you check your portfolio daily in the first 3 years, you are actively torturing yourself. You are watching grass grow and getting mad at the grass for not being a redwood tree yet. Instead, I want you to track a different number: your savings rate. If you earned $5,000 and you moved $1,000 into your investment account, you won the month. Period. Even if the market crashed and your total balance went down, you still won because you control the only variable that matters in the loading phase. The market's performance is noise. Your contribution is the signal. Step 2. The anti-envy reframe. In 2026, status is a weapon used by corporations to extract your capital. When you see a friend post a photo of their new $80,000 SUV, I want you to look past the leather seats. I want you to see the opportunity cost. That car is not a sign of wealth. It is a $1.5 million hole in their retirement fund. They aren't ahead of you. They are just further along in the process of trading their future freedom for a temporary dopamine hit. You aren't depriving yourself. You are buying your 50-year-old self a life where they don't have to answer to a boss they hate. Step 3. The 48-hour friction rule. We talked about this in the emergency fund video, but for the $100,000 sprint, we have to scale it. Anything that isn't a hell yes for your life, any purchase over $50 requires a 48-hour cooldown. Most lifestyle inflation happens in small, frictionless bursts. A new pair of sneakers here, a smart home gadget there. By adding friction, you are giving your prefrontal cortex time to wake up and say, hey, we don't actually need this. This is just stress spending because the meeting with HR went badly. Step 4. Automate the boring. You need to set up your system so that you never decide to invest. The money should leave your paycheck before it ever touches your checking account. If you see $2,000 sitting in your bank, you will subconsciously invent a disaster that requires you to spend it. Oh, the roof might leak eventually. Or, I should probably get a better laptop for my side hustle. The human mind is a professional at rationalizing bad decisions. Don't give it the chance. Treat your investments like a bill from the IRS, except this is a bill you pay to your future self. Here is the secret that the 47-cent version of you doesn't understand. The physics of money actually changes once you cross the $100,000 mark. Compounding is a backloaded engine. If you start with $1,000 and it grows 10%, you have $1,100. You don't feel anything, but let's look at the math of $100,000. At $100,000, that same 10% gain is $10,000. Suddenly, in a single year, your money earned more than some people earn working 40 hours a week at a minimum wage job. Your money has become an employee. And the best part? This employee doesn't take sick days, doesn't need a 401k match, and doesn't complain about the coffee in the break room. Charlie Munger famously said that the first $100,000 is a bitch. But you have to do it. He was right, because that is the point where the interest starts to rival the contributions. Think about it this way. To get from $0 to $100,000, it might take you 7 years of intense struggle and eating generic brand cereal. But to get from $100,000 to $200,000, it might only take you 4 years. From $800,000 to $900,000, it might take you 8 months. The hill gets flatter the higher you climb. But most people quit while the incline is at its steepest. They are 80% of the way to the summit. And because they can't see the view through the clouds yet, they turn around and walk back down to the parking lot. This is where the status tax we talked about earlier becomes truly deadly. If you hit $40,000 and decide you deserve a luxury car lease, you haven't just spent $40,000. You have reset the compounding clock. You have effectively told the universe, I'd rather look successful in a parking lot today than actually be free in a decade. When you hit $100,000, you start to feel the wealthy momentum. You stop looking at the price of organic eggs because you know your portfolio grew by $200 while you were sleeping. That peace of mind is the first real dividend of wealth. It's not about the luxury. It's about the silence. The silence of not having to worry about a random Tuesday disaster. We're going to end with a hard truth for 2026. The ultimate status symbol isn't a Rolex. It isn't a vacation to an overwater bungalow in the Maldives. It's the word no. The person with $2,000 in the bank and a $900 car payment is a slave. They cannot say no to a toxic boss. They cannot say no to a 60-hour work week. They cannot say no to a soul-crushing corporate culture because they are 2 weeks away from losing their house. Their life is a high-wire act with no safety net. But the person who fought the 47-cent days, who stayed in the boring Honda, and who climbed over the $100,000 wall, that person has options. When you have $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 in liquid assets, you walk into a room differently. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room because you have the quietest confidence. You know that if the world goes crazy tomorrow, you have a refuge. Stop letting the world tell you what success looks like. Success looks like a boring brokerage account that grows while you sleep. Success looks like having the freedom to quit a job that makes you miserable without checking your balance first. I'm Glolome. I'm just a cat on the internet. But I'm telling you, the wall is real, but it's not permanent. Every dollar you save today is a brick you're removing from the wall that stands between you and your freedom. Go open your app one last time. Set that auto transfer for $10 more than it was last month. Then delete the app, go for a walk, eat a sandwich, and remember that the person who can handle the boredom of the first $100,000 is the only person who will ever earn the right to be free. I'll see you in the next one from the quiet side of the bank counter.